everyone, it's Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 9 of my Metal Vault. If you've been watching my series for a while now, you know I will be exploring and showing you my favourite albums within heavy metal, to thrash metal, to death metal, to black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it. All that excellent stuff. If I have it, it will be in this series and my other videos, of course. And I'm going to show you a band that is considered one of the first folk metal bands, formed in 1990 in Newcastle. Been around for 33 years, along with My Dying Bride, who I have covered in this series. And with these guys, there's just no question, these guys are excellent. They're excellent to me. I love my folk metal. I'm in a folk metal band, as you know. And I hope to actually see these guys live, because haven't got a chance to actually see him yet, but I got to see the former vocalist who is on the album in question that I'll be showing you, as you can see down there, do pretty much a set at Birmingham in 2015. So without further ado, let's get on with the band in question, and that is Skyclad and their 1992 album, A Burnt Offering for the Bone Idol. And what an album this is. The cover is really cool. You got a Stonehenge in the background, a hooded figure, and a wall that you usually see at, like, you know, like big movie events and all that, like Best Picture, all that stuff. And here's the back of the album with of course, the Celtic knots and everything there, and you got the band right there. And of course, the man that I'm on about in question, and let me just get him up before I make myself look like a fool. Martin, right here. Of course, he was in another band that I will be covering in this series, because he was in the band, and a lot of you are going to remember this band, Sabbat, who will be covered in this series sometime in the future, either this year or next year. I still got a lot more to go through. And after that, after he left Sabbat, he formed this band. And the first album is called The Wayward Sons of Mother Earth. That came out in 1991. And then a year later, this came out. Of course, I got this at Black City Records. I thought, gotta have it. And I also got their first album on cassette. For anyone not familiar with Skyclad, well, it's folk metal from the north. And let me start off by saying cheers before I talk a little bit more. Phenomenal album. And I've said this about all the other albums. It's a masterpiece. It's a timeless masterpiece. I think if we get out the vinyl, not the actual vinyl itself, but we have lyrics on the sheet here. Good. I know you can see who does what, because you got Martin on vocals, you got Steve lead, 12-string and acoustic guitars. You got all the others there as well. So Mr. English on the bass and classical guitar. We got Dave on the lead guitars, Mr. Baxter there on the drums, and Jenkins on violin, mandolin, keyboards, and backing vocals. And of course, when you hear folk metal, that is what you get. And there's a reason I'm going to get out this vinyl. It's a nice yellow color with, of course, the band logo there. Hopefully I can get around the right way. There we go. Really nice color there. And what can I say about this album? It's epic. It's an epic album from start to finish. You know, it may not be one for everyone, but if you're watching it, then you are into bands like Skyclad. And there's actually a term behind the name Skyclad, and I got up here. And it is Skyclad is a pagan term for ritual nudity, meaning literally that the practitioners are clad only by the sky due to their highly nature-orientated beliefs. Thought that was just an interesting fact to show you lot here. And of course, how to all get up there, obviously, screams, folk metal. And like I said, they were one of the first bands to, are considered one of the first folk metal bands pretty much ever. There's not been any ones that have mixed folk in metal before this. Obviously, you had bands like Led Zeppelin adding folk elements to their music, and of course, there's many more bands, but Led Zeppelin comes to mind as ones who do it extremely well. And these guys just pretty much on their first album and this one and the ones following this, mixing all those instruments of, all those elements, all those different instruments like mandolins and violins and countless different ones, 12-string guitars, of course, and keyboards, because there's bands using keyboards like in the studio, but not necessarily live. I found footage of these guys live, and of course, same member doing the same thing. So that's the Jenkins there, which would be. I'm not going to try and say her first name. Like probably I'm saying it wrong. I'm saying it wrong, but right there did both the violin and the keyboards live, so she switch between the two. And I like metal with that element in there with the violin. Like, of course, My Dying Bride, mention them again, had violins and keyboards. It's such a phenomenal album, this. And the first one too, and I've heard various different songs from all the other albums that they have done. I'm trying to remember how many albums Martin's done with Skyclad, and if I go here, he did all the way up to 2000. And of course, bid on 2 live albums in 2001 and 2. So one was live at Dynamo and another Fine Mess. But like I said, his vocals suit this as well as him when he was in Sabat, which had a lot. It was thrash metal, but it had a lot of themes that you would hear in folk rock and folk metal later on down the line. But these guys were paving the way for future bands to do that genre. And I've not found any more bands that mixed folk and metal together prior to Skyclad. And of course, the cover itself, it sums up pretty much the entire album and just the overall sound. It's folk metal because it's got all those elements that I've mentioned so far. And of course, Martin, let's get him up again. One in the middle. He performed at Beermageddon 2015 and just played a bunch of Skyclad songs, which was really cool. Because I heard the name Skyclad before and I was like, these guys are really cool. And then saw Martin at Beermageddon just playing a bunch of Skyclad songs from here, from the first album, and I think the other albums that he was on specifically. they since changed vocalists. Because it's a different vocalist who's by the name of, well, yeah, Kevin Ridley. That's the man who took over from Martin. And like I said, this is not going to be for everyone. Not everyone seems to like folk metal, but if you go like up north, like north parts of England, Europe, Scandinavia, they absolutely love folk metal. There is a folk metal scene down here in Bristol, but not as big as say up north. But when bands like Helveti and Vintrol and Skalmold come through, yeah, that's when it starts getting like, there's the scene. There's that big folk metal scene. And of course, you're getting people who just love fast, aggressive metal. It is aggressive, but it's melodic as well. Mentioning again with all the folk instruments, so like the mandolin, the violin, keyboards, and classical guitar, being like, and acoustic guitars and other instruments like lyres and taco harpers. And if you're a folk metal fan, you're watching this, you're gonna know a lot of bands that would incorporate all those instruments. My band has incorporated hurdy-gurdies and keyboards and violin, and that's what makes folk metal. You just obviously you got the melodic parts with the folk instruments. So with all the folk stuff, which is a lot of it's very melodic, but sometimes it can be very upbeat and just gets you moving. And mixing that with metal, so you got the hard hitting drums, you got the guitar crunchy riffs, you got the fat bass tones, and then you got the really harsh vocals, or harsh to clean vocals, and you mix it all together. You got bands like Helveti and Vintrol and Sephirum, and so many bands that were coming out after, like years after this band, and this band started it all. And I've said this before about all the albums that I've shown so far, is one that you need for your collection. And like I said, I will be showing a lot of folk metal on my channel because I have so much more to show, as well as a load more death metal, a load more thrash, heavy metal, black metal, just so much more. And I thought, if I'm going to start off with a folk metal album, a folk metal band from the 90s, definitely Skyclad. Because I'm trying to think if there's any more bands that were doing this like after them, like maybe like a year or two after. Could probably think of one, but these guys started it all, and I'm glad, and a lot of you watching this will be glad as well that these guys exist. Phenomenal band, phenomenal album. There is footage of these guys live on here on YouTube. There's a YouTuber called Old School Metal Vids, and I'll actually get the links from those shows and put them in the description below, as well as his channel, because this person does a lot of videos. And I've been at half of the places, like festivals and gigs that he's been at. So surprised I haven't crossed paths with the person yet, but filmed at least 2 shows of Skyclad from 91 and 92. Of course, 92, obviously this album would have been coming out at that time, or they were playing songs before the album came out. But once it hit, people were like, wow, this is, even when the first one hit, like, okay, this is a bit odd. But then someone would be like, it's reminding me of Led Zeppelin when they added folk elements to their music. Like, if it works for Led Zeppelin, it works for Skyclad. Absolutely 100% a banger. One of my favorite albums, one of my favorite bands. And for those watching, it's one of your favorites as well. And if you got to see these guys back in the day with the lineup on the back in question, then lucky you there. And if you got this album, put it back on again, you might spark some memories about when you actually first heard it, when you first saw the band, and what your first initial I think that's the word I'm looking for. Your first impressions of this album were your first impressions of the band. And like, what are some of your favorite tracks? Before I get on to the end of the video, obviously Spinning Jenny's one of my favorites. Broken Promised Land. Of course, I don't know how to actually say that one properly, but that is one of them. If you know how to say it properly, then let me know down below how to pronounce it the right way, because sometimes I'm not good at that. So yeah, those three tracks specifically, sorry, are my favorites. The whole album from start to finish is just, again, I'm going to use that word, epic. And the other word again is a masterpiece. It's timeless and a classic from 1992. Obviously, coming around at the time when death metal was still at that height. So many death metal bands were releasing albums around 92, in 92. And of course, the black metal scene was coming in at full force around that time. But these guys were like, let's do this album and let's hope people love it. And here's one guy here who loves it. And to those watching, you love it as well. So once again, this is Skyclad and a Burnt Offering for the Bone Idol. Pick it up if you don't have it yet. And thank you very much for watching episode 9 of my Metal Vault. It is, of course, Friday as I am recording this. It will be released tomorrow in sometime either in the late morning or the early afternoon. I have a load more here to do because I got a black metal album to show you, another black metal album to show you in my next one on Tuesday, and then of course a lot more death metal and some more thrash and heavy metal. Like I say, I have so much more. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'm gonna have another drink before I end this video. And of course, I want to thank everyone who has been subscribing to my channel and liking this series and commenting on each video. It means a lot. And this is why I make these videos, because it will spark up some memories from those who would have gotten the albums that I've shown so far back in the day and be like, yeah, I remember getting that back in the day, and like the first impression of the album. And you know, there's so many I'm gonna include, and this was one of them, because as well as death metal being my main favorite genre in metal, folk metal is a close second to that. But if I was going to pick my top 3, probably death metal, thrash metal, and folk metal, because those two genres, all 3 of those genres go really well together. Death and folk metal, thrash and folk metal, and specifically black in folk metal. Black metal is really cool. I love black metal that mixes folk metal. And all these folk metal bands that I've mentioned, well, like I said, I don't think there was any other bands that were doing metal and folk together before Skyclad. And after that, there's just been countless other bands. You know, I included mine, included Helveti and Zephyrin, Vintrol, Skullmold. It's probably a ton more that I'm missing. Mentioning bands that are black in folk metal. Primordial, absolutely fantastic band. A lot of them would have taken influence from so many different places, like obviously folk and I'm gonna take a guess. A lot of them did take influence from Skyclad. Me personally, for one in my own band, I've taken influence from Skyclad. You know, always trying to, just listen to it and thinking, yeah, get a little piece of Skyclad and influences from the other guys in the band, mix it together, and just get a song that's got those influences in the band. You know, paying homage to an just absolutely excellent band. I'll show this one more time before I end the video. Skyclad, a burnt offering for the bone idol. Any newcomers, pick it up, and their first album, which I will cover here as well, but in a later episode. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Jake and Jake's Metal Chat. Keep that banner of metal held high. More will be coming from the Metal Vault, and I will see you in some more videos coming at you.